shed tour this week. I did the first one on BR standards, I did the second one on LMS, I did the third one on LNER and diesels, and then I've got the last one to do, which it's taken me months to get around to doing this, but I've got Southern and Great Western locomotives to do today, and then that should be up to date, and I think I've covered everything. So getting straight to it. So starting with Southern region locomotives first, gotta start with this one, the Bullet Pacific. This one is, it was originally a West Country class. I've changed it so it's a Battle of Britain class. I renamed it to and renumbered it to 92 Squadron 34081, which is resident on the heritage line near where I lived. So as well as renumbering it and renaming it, there is quite a bit that I've done to this one to modify it. First of all, obviously I've weathered it. I've glossed the side of it a little bit there, as you can see, just to give it a little bit more of a shine with the flat sides. They were fairly shiny the majority of the time, I guess. Other than that, I've fitted the KD coupling. I've had to modify the vacuum pipe there a bit, just cut a bit of that away so it can kind of swivel. I did have some cylinder drain cocks fitted on these, which don't come with them, but you can buy them like a brass etch that you can just super glue on. But I couldn't really make them work. They caused the front bogie to derail over points and things like that, and I kept knocking them off every time I picked the locomotive up as well, so I ended up just removing those. A couple of route indicator discs added to the front and the back. And then in terms of the other modifications I've made, I'll just move it forward a little bit. So one of my big kind of gripes about these models is the massive gap between the locomotive and the tender. So to cover that, I just added some cab doors that you can see there. They're just plasticard. I've just painted them green. I need to touch that up actually. Doesn't look too good from that angle, but it is what it is. I've got the crew in there, and then what I've also done is added a bit of black plasticard up the top here, just to close that gap between the locomotive and tender. So I think on the Real Things there's like it's not a tarpaulin, I'm not really sure what it's made of, but there's like a cover that goes between the tender and the locomotive body, and that's just kind of meant to replicate that, because I always be looking down at the locomotive like this and you could just see the gap, which I didn't really like. Anyway, we've got the coal in the tender, a couple of root discs on the back as well, and that is about it for this one. When I bought the numbers for this, I got the crest and the nameplate there as well. I think that was from Fox Transfers. And then it also included the replacement smoke box door number plate as well. So in terms of running, it's not the best. It's fine at anything other than a crawl. It's just the chassis is a little bit sticky, I find. It's okay once it gets moving though. But yeah, the biggest improvement you can make to these, I think, is just getting rid of that gap in between the locomotive and the tender. Right, sticking with the southern region there, next up we've got the Hornby Schools class, which is a really good detailed model, I think. One or two maybe drawbacks with it, I don't know. One of them is it has a traction tyre, basically a rubber strip on the wheel that gives it, well, way more traction. And I don't know whether it interferes with the running on it a bit. It's a bit less realistic because it just has so much torque, there's no wheel slip, but it does make it ridiculously powerful. If I could, I'd probably try and get rid of that, but I've seen a few people do it on YouTube, but I don't know whether I'm brave enough to give it a go yet. But in terms of, yeah, the model itself looks brilliant. I've still got to add a coupling to the front of this one. It does kind of protrude quite a lot out the front, but that's fine. It is what it is. So all I've done to this is weather it, a couple of root discs on the front there. We've got a crew in the cab. Move forward a bit. I like these with the open cab because you can see the crew quite nicely, and they've got the coal in there. Bit of it I could probably do with sticking a few some bigger cab doors in there just to reduce that gap a little bit. Maybe put like a footplate to cover that gap. And then the KDs, that's it. A bit of spilled coal on the back there as well. So it's a fairly good runner. Backwards. Another thing that I found with these is I'm a stickler for fitting detail packs like the front steps, the cylinder drain cocks, all those sort of things. With this, I could not find a way to get the front steps to kind of work with the curves on my layout, and they're not even that tight. You can see there's a bit of super glue still on it there. I need to kind of pick that off. But I've ended up just removing them in the end. I just couldn't really make them work, and it looks okay without them. But they kind of taper in towards the wheels. So unless you've got really, really non-tight curves, really gentle curves, then I'm not sure you're going to get away with putting them on. But they do look really good when they're fitted. So yeah, I love this, really good model. I just wish there was a replacement wheel set that you could buy that just got rid of the traction tyre. Right, so I've only got those two Southern Region locomotives, so moving on to Great Western, last but not least. So the first one I've got is the classic Pannier Tank, and this is a Backman model. You can pick these up secondhand fairly cheap. They're really good runners. One's a bit noisy, but it still runs fine. In terms of modifications, all I've done is stick a bit of coal and weather it, and the couplings and a lamp on the front as well. It's missing a few details, this one. It's not got any lamp iron brackets on the front there. I've just blue tacked that lamp on the top. So you could easily add those just to stick a bit of detail on there. I think I might do that at some point. But it's definitely characterful. I mean, who doesn't love these? They just look cool and iconic, don't they? Backwards. There you go. So yeah, not too much to say about this really, but it's a good one. Definitely recommend one of these. Right, next up we've got another Pannier Tank. This one is the 94XX. Again, it's Backman. And this one's fairly new. I think it only came out last year. It's okay. It's not the best running model in the world, I don't think. I don't know whether maybe my one just wasn't that good, but it does sometimes stall over points. But if you've got a DCC layout or maybe a stay alive in it, I wouldn't have thought you'd have that problem. The other thing is it's got a coreless motor. And I think this is one of the first locomotives that I bought that had the coreless motor, and I wasn't really that impressed with it. It just didn't seem as smooth as some of the other ones, like the regular motors that I've had experience with. So, but I've kept it just because I still like it and it's got a lot of character and it's not that bad. I'm just being picky really. Yeah, maybe it's better than I thought. One nice touch on this is it does have firebox flicker, although you have to be running it pretty quick to be able to notice it, on DC that is. You can see it a little bit in there. What other features does it have? It is very quiet as well. It's actually a better runner than I remember it being. I haven't had this one out in quite a while, to be honest, but yeah, it is pretty nice. Should probably give this a bit more of a run, to be honest. Next up we've got the Hornby Grange class, and I love this one, it's really cool. It's a good runner, looks the part, really nicely detailed. I like that it's got the lower tender, so you can see the crew in there as well. So I've just put some coal in there, I've got a lamp on the back, lamp on the front, and then the KD's fitted. And I think that's all I've done to this. Oh no, I've replaced the smoke box door dart as well. That I need to touch up the paint on that a bit. I've chipped some of it off. That's it really. But in terms of running, I'm going to go forward. Yeah, it's just got a lot of character, these engines, I think. I think the Backman Hall is meant to be pretty good as well. I was tempted to get one of those, but yeah, I went with the Grange instead. So yeah, definitely recommend one of these. And then last but not least, we've got the Hornby King. King of Great Western locomotives. So I've had this for quite a while. I think it was discounted on Hatton's a few years ago, so I stuck it on the Christmas list. But in terms of detail, it's really good. So I just weathered this, glossed the boiler a bit. I just added I think it's called a train reporting number on the front, that one I75 or 175. I just zoomed in on a picture of a King with that one on the front, cropped it so it was just a number, printed it off Word, stuck it on a bit of card, and then blue tagged it on the front. So it's pretty easy to make those really. In terms of modifications, just the lamps, the number, and the weathering I think on this. In terms of running, it's a little bit jerky at slow speed. I just have a tendency to kind of cog a little bit at slow speed. But it's not, this isn't the kind of loco that's trundling around the yard at a snail's pace. You know, I'm only really running this fairly quickly with a decent rake of coaches behind it. But in terms of the detail on this, it is really good. I like it, especially with the weather in, it just looks the part. And then from the back there, as always, I've just replaced the couplings, a bit of coal in the tender, got a Backman crew in there, and that is about it, ready to go. Right, so I think that's all the kind of groups of locomotives covered that I've got on the layout now. So I think the next one of these I'll probably do is just... Right, so that is all the locomotive groups covered now, so I think we're up to date. I think in a future video I might just do a quick one on the kind of different coaching and wagon rakes that I've got made up and how I put those together, and just how you know, what's compatible with what and how they run and things like that. So let me know if that's something that you'd find interesting. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.